everybody, welcome back to readings of James the Giant Peach. Today we're going to be reading chapters 11 and 12. And things got pretty interesting yesterday. I was lucky enough to read on Google Meet live with a lot of my students, and the story stuff is starting to pick up. So what happened in chapters 9 and 10, after James was cleaning up, after all of the people coming in to see the great giant peach, he started to get a little bit curious and go towards the peach and noticed there was a hole at the bottom, and decided to actually crawl inside. And once he was in there, he crawled towards the center of the peach and noticed he found the seed and noticed that the seed of the peach actually had a door. So he opened the door, and where we last left off, we heard somebody say, "Look who it is," and then someone else said, "We've been waiting for you." So that's where we ended off last time, and I am very excited to see what happens in chapters 11 and 12. The vocabulary word that I want you to listen for during today's reading is the word slither. Let me just make sure it's going to be the word slither today. If you think you know what the word slither means, definitely comment below and let me know, or on Google Classroom. And the question that I want you to answer for me today is, let me make sure I have the right characters here. Okay. What were the earthworm and the centipede arguing about? So after today's read aloud, I'd love for you to tell me what were the earthworm and the centipede arguing about. Make sure that you answer in full sentences by restating the question. The earthworm and the centipede were arguing about blank. Let me know. Okay, so here we go. These two chapters have some pretty good illustration in them, so I'll make sure to show you the pictures as well. Chapter 11. James's large, frightened eyes traveled slowly around the room. The creatures, some sitting on chairs, others reclining on a sofa, were all watching him intently. Creatures? Or were they insects? An insect is usually something rather small, is it not? A grasshopper, for example, is an insect. So what would you call it if you saw a grasshopper as large as a dog? As large as a large dog? You could hardly call that an insect, could you? There was an old green grasshopper as large as a large dog sitting on a stool directly across the room from James now. And next to the old grasshopper, there was an enormous spider. And next to the spider, there was a giant ladybug with 9 black spots on her scarlet shell. Each of the 3 were squatting upon a magnificent chair. On a sofa nearby, reclining comfortably in a curled-up position, there was a centipede and an earthworm. On the floor, over in the far corner, there was something thick and white that looked as though it might be a silkworm, but it was sleeping soundly and nobody was paying any attention to it. Every one of these creatures was at least as big as James himself, and in the strange greenish light that shone down from somewhere in the ceiling, they were absolutely terrifying to behold. "I'm hungry," the spider announced suddenly, staring hard at James. "I'm famished," the old green grasshopper said. "So am I," said the ladybug. The centipede sat up a little straighter in the sofa. "Everyone's famished," he said. "We need food." 4 pairs of round black glassy eyes were all fixed upon James. The centipede made a wriggly movement with his body as though he were about to glide off the sofa, but he didn't. There was a long pause and a long silence. The spider, who happened to be a female spider, opened her mouth and ran a long black tongue delicately over her lips. "Are you hungry?" she asked suddenly, leaning forward and addressing herself to James. Poor James was backed up against the wall, shivering with fright and much too terrified to answer. "What's the matter with you?" the old green grasshopper asked. "You look positively ill." Alright, so here's some of the really wonderful illustration that we have right now. Some of the characters that we just met. Take a look. We have the worm, the spider, the ladybug. They do all look pretty scary. I'd be scared if I was James too. "He looked as though he was going to faint at any second," the centipede said. "Oh my goodness, the poor thing," the ladybug cried. "I do believe he thinks it's him that we want to eat." There was a roar of laughter from all sides. Oh dear, they said. "What an awful thought. You mustn't be frightened, the ladybug said kindly. We wouldn't dream of hurting you. You are one of us now. Didn't you know that? You are one of the crew. We're all in the same boat. We've been waiting for you all day long, the old green grasshopper said. We thought you were never going to turn up. I'm glad you made it in. So cheer up, my boy, cheer up, the centipede said. And meanwhile, I wish you'd come over here and give me a hand with these boots. It takes me hours to get them off by myself. That's the end of chapter 11. So a little bit of a twist. We weren't really sure what to expect when we met all of those characters. James certainly was very afraid when he met them, but luckily it turns out that they are not mean. They seem to be pretty nice. So let's see what happens in chapter 12. James decided that this was most certainly not a time to be disagreeable, so he crossed the room to where the centipede was sitting and knelt down beside him. Thank you so much, the centipede said. You are very kind. You have a lot of boots, James murmured. I have a lot of legs, the centipede answered proudly, and a lot of feet, 100 to be exact. There he goes again, the earthworm cried, speaking for the first time. He simply cannot stop telling lies about his legs. He doesn't have anything like 100 of them. He's only got 42. The trouble is that most people don't bother to count them. They just take his word. And anyway, there's nothing marvelous, centipede about having a lot of legs. Poor fellow, the centipede said, whispering in James's ear. He's blind. He can't see how splendid I look. In my opinion, the earthworm said, the really marvelous thing is to have no legs at all and to be able to walk just the same. You call that walking? Cried the centipede. You're a slitherer. That's all you are. You just slither along. I'm going to read that part again because that was our vocab word. You call that walking? Cried the centipede. You're a slitherer. That's all you are. You just slither along. I glide, said the earthworm primly. You are a slimy beast, answered the centipede. I am not a slimy beast, the earthworm said. I am useful and much loved creature. Ask any garden you like. And as for you, I am a pest, the centipede announced, grinning broadly and looking round the room for approval. He is so proud of that, the ladybug said, smiling at James, though for the life of me I cannot understand why. I am the only pest in this room, cried the centipede, still grinning away, unless you count old green grasshopper over there, but he is long past it now. He's too old to be a pest anymore. The old green grasshopper turned his huge black eyes upon the centipede and gave him a withering look. Young fellow, he said, speaking in a deep, slow, scornful voice, I have never been a pest in my life. I am a musician. Hear, hear, said the ladybug. James, the centipede said, your name is James, isn't it? Yes. Well, James, have you ever in your life seen such a marvelous, colossal centipede as me? Hi, Dor. Dor came to join us. I certainly haven't, James answered. How on earth did you get to be like that? Very peculiar, the centipede said. Very, very peculiar indeed. Let me tell you what happened. I was messing about in the garden under the old peach tree, and suddenly a funny little green thing came wriggling past my nose. Bright green it was, and extraordinarily beautiful, and it looked like some kind of tiny stone or a crystal. Oh, but I know what that was, cried James. It happened to me too, said the ladybug. And me, Miss Spider said. Suddenly there were little green things everywhere. The soil was full of them. I actually swallowed one, the earthworm declared proudly. So did I, said the ladybug. I swallowed 3, the centipede cried. But who's telling the story anyway? Don't interrupt. It's too late to tell stories now, the old green grasshopper announced. It's time to go to sleep. I refuse to sleep in my boots, the centipede cried. How many more are there to come off, James? I think I've done about 20 so far, James told him. Then that leaves 80 to go, the centipede said. 22, not 80, shrieked the earthworm. He's lying again. The centipede roared with laughter. Stop pulling the earthworm's leg, the ladybug said. This sent Centipede into hysterics. Pulling his leg, he cried, wriggling with glee and pointing at the earthworm. Which leg am I pulling? You tell me that. James decided that he rather liked the centipede. Hey, you cannot chew on my whiteboard mark or my whiteboard eraser. No. Sorry. No. James decided that he rather liked the centipede. He was obviously a rascal, but what a change it was to hear somebody laughing once in a while. He had never heard Aunt Sponge or Aunt Spiker laughing aloud in all the time he had been with them. "We really must get some sleep," the old green grasshopper said. "We've got a tough day ahead of us tomorrow. So would you be kind enough, Miss Spider, to make the beds?" That is the end of chapter 12. And I think this is our Miss Spider right here. I wonder how she's going to make the beds. All right, so I would like you to tell me what you think the word slither means and know what the centipede and the earthworm were fighting about. Make sure to comment below and tell me what your answers are. I can't wait to continue reading. This book is getting super interesting, and I will see you next time.